if you're a pastor watching this, it's never as bad as it seems, and it's probably not as good as you make it seem on Instagram. That would be my encouragement. Stay the course. It's a long journey. If you're a believer watching this, stay the course. It's a long journey. And if you are someone who's struggling, wrestling, just know that you are probably positioned in someone's life to be an answer to prayer for them. Mm-hmm. So find that person. Find that person at the grocery store, or at the gym, or at school that you can minister to, and that will help you get out of the cycle that you're feeling. Not used by God, not hearing from the Lord. Start doing things that Jesus might have done, and watch how God starts to use you in a great and mighty way.
Mic drop.
Mic drop. Dun, 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 dun.
I want to talk to you about a couple of things. Number one, I know you. We have a good relationship.
Sure.
And honestly, when I first met you, the season that we were in, I won't say it was like a dark season, but we were coming out of a really bad situation. And then we were in Charlotte, was beginning to heal and to be restored. And then coming to focus. The first Sunday you preached, I remember the sermon series. It was from bleeding to healing.
Okay.
And it was the church hurt series.
Holy Hurt.
Holy Hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's my book idea. I actually own the domain name holyhurt.com. Haven't done anything with it yet, but maybe one day.
You need to do that.
Stay tuned.
You need to do that. That was a good series, because the first sermon was from bleeding to healing. And the way you broke down how when the centurion, or when Peter cut the guy's ear.
Yes.
And how Jesus picked it up and restored it.
Jesus had all the right in the world to let him bleed out, because they were wrongfully arresting him, right? Mm-hmm. He had been wrongfully charged, but he knew what he had to do on the cross. But, it's very easy, even for the soldier, to say, look what a Christian did to me. Yeah. And the soldier allowed Jesus to heal him. And he had all the right to say, no, don't touch me. I'll go to the doctor and I'll get my ear healed. But he allowed Jesus, who he was arresting, to heal his ear. It was one of the last miracles Jesus ever did. Yeah,
and it was so powerful, because when you had broke that down, the season that we was in, it was like he was hitting haymakers. I'm just leaning back in the chair like, I don't know if you heard me or seen me in the corner, but I was like going crazy over there in the corner, because it was like everything that you was hitting on was hitting everything that I was dealing with in that season. And then shortly after that, that's when I started getting friend requests from the church and everyone.
We do our very best. we do some stalking. We're professionals.
And the thing is, I was stalking y'all too.
Right,
so
right.
I was stalking y'all.
We're professionals.
Y'all was stalking us.
Yeah, we're professional. Listen, the church is not a service, all right? The church is not a church service. The church is family. And so you can't not be friends with your family,
That is true. Yeah. And I had actually, the way that we got to focus came to focus was, my wife, I had treated her to a day spot after she had Marley, our second child, or our third child, second son, third child. Mm-hmm. And treated her to a day, just have a me day. And I actually bought her a car that day too. So I'm not.
Come on, man.
I'm just saying.
Come on. I don't know who's watching this right now, but good luck. All right. Good luck catching up with TJ McKnight. Man sends his wife to the spa after having a child, and then you know what? Let's buy a car today too.
You got to measure up.
I know. You're setting the bar high.
Setting the bar high. Yeah. I mean, nobody could take my baby from me. But yeah, and while she was getting her hair done, Pastor Yvette was doing her hair. Okay. We didn't know Pastor Yvette at the time or anything like that, and she was like, "Y'all should check out Focus." And we was in Charlotte, but we had came up for the weekend, and she was like, "Y'all should check out Focus." So I was like, "Yeah, all right." Everybody trying to invite us to a church and stuff. So she was like, "Sure, whatever." And then when we moved back, that's when we had started kind of looking for a church home, because we were like, we're not going back to the church that we came from. Mm-hmm. So we're just going to look for a new church, because the space that we are in and still is that we are about the multicultural. Right. We're about finding a home that represents heaven. Sure. And so I remember stalking your Instagram page. Yeah. I came across a sermon clip that you had put up. You said, we're not going to be the white church on the corner or the black church or the Hispanic church. We're going to be God's church and this, that, and that. And I'm like, this dude is speaking my language. Like, I need to know this guy. Yeah. And then when we went to that church, to your church that Sunday morning, And that sermon was just knocking me out. I was like, all right, this feels too good to be true. What's wrong with these people?
Yeah.
And so what is amazing about you and your character and everything about you is that I noticed one thing about you. And that is when you had preached that fire sermon, and then right after you preached, you went back to the back of the auditorium, to the door, and you greeted every single person.
Try my very best to do that. The larger the church gets, the harder it gets to do that. Yeah. I don't want to put any pastors under pressure, but
you're putting the pressure on them.
Right. At our main location, our broadcast location, we run 3 services back to back to back. And so what I've tried to do is greet people before, greet people after the first, which is before the second. And then usually by the time I preach that third one, I'm toast. And so you don't actually want me to greet you, we don't at the end of the third, because my people skills the bucket full of personality is gone, and my compassion muscles have atrophied, and I'm done. So you don't want to go to lunch with me after church. It's like not after preaching 3 times. And so yes, I do my best to try to greet everyone that I can, say hello. I think it's important that not only should a pastor be approachable, but he needs to be himself or herself. Like, you have to be genuine. Yeah. And I've just, I grew up in an era where the pastor seemed not just unapproachable, but untouchable. Yeah. It was like they would come out halfway through the worship set onto the platform, and then they would leave while the worship music was still playing from the platform. And so their feet never even hit the floor. And I try my best to fight against that. And obviously everyone has reasons, and there's safety protocol, there's past hurt, there's mindset. People are crazy, and trust me, I've met them. They've been in our church. They still coming sometimes. And so I've seen those people, but I do my very best to try to get out there if I can. Yeah. And that, honestly, that left such a huge impression on me and on my wife, because from where we come from, you don't see that. Like, everything you just broke down, we don't see that at all. Right. In the black church, you ain't going to see. But even in a traditional denominational, Pentecostal church, even whether it's black church, white church, Hispanic, there was an era of we sit on the platform. There was an era of, no, we don't give our phone numbers away. Like, I still have to convince guys that I don't use a burner phone. They because I give my phone number is basically public record at this point. Yeah. My is given to every single person who is in our database as a contributor. So if you give $1 or $5 or $1 million, doesn't matter. I don't even know the amounts. Yeah. You get a text message directly from me. Yeah. And so I've texted thousands of people over the years, and I have to add a qualifier or a quantifier to the text message. I have to say, P.S., this is not a robotext, because it really is me. It really is you. And I think, so I'm fighting that resistance. So when I coach pastors, when I coach leaders, I'm like, no. You have to be, number one, you have to be who you really are. Like, tell the truth, shame the devil, because being a double standard or living a double standard is not going to be helpful. Yeah. Number two is you should be somewhat accessible. And with cell phones these days, you can put it on Do Not Disturb. You can. It doesn't mean that I have to answer every call. That's true. It just means that my number is available. Yeah. And the way that the people communicate these days via social media, podcasts like this one, Instagram DMs, text messages, it's on your time that you get to respond. Yeah. But my number is public record at our church. And honestly, after we had gave, it was funny because we had gave, a small amount, like you said, $1. It wasn't $1 that we gave. You probably still only gave $1 to this point. I don't check, but someone check this man's tithing records. Someone check his records. But after we gave, and then like the next day, like you just said, you sent that video, and I'm like, this is different. Yeah. We work really hard. We average about 1,000 text messages a week. That's crazy. So like, we just did Christmas at Mamandi in the Mamandi Theater downtown, had a great harvest of souls, and we spent the very next day with our thumbs. Like, I'm not talking about a text system. Yeah. There is a text system. We have that. We do use that occasionally. But we're talking about individual with our cell phones. Yeah. Personalized text message, and then we wrote thank you cards, and we called people, and that's the kind of stuff that people are like, how did the church grow so fast, such short amount of time? Well, we put in some serious personalization into what we do. It's not a production. It's not plastic. It's not a show. Yeah. You know? Yeah. This is the real deal. We're dealing with real people, and real souls and real lives.
Yeah. And it built into what we have right now, a real connection. Sure. A real strong connection. Yeah. Because like I said, we don't come from that. And like seeing all of that, seeing you doing the things that you're doing, even when we launched the For the Future campaign. Right. And we were there for that, and I saw you. I was out we on the hayride and all that stuff. And then after the hayride was over, you breaking down tables and rolling tables up. It was like, who is this dude?
I'm not here to share my secrets, but even just today, we got a call from the school that we meet in, and we had set up our baptismal tank last night during worship rehearsal for Sunday. We're going to baptize a bunch of people on Sunday, and we got a call this morning that they have a play practice on the platform, and Friday is our day off as a staff, and so Pastor Michael had plans already. Pastor Chris had plans already, and I get the text message with the screenshot from the school principal, and I said, I'm on my way. Yeah. And so literally, and this isn't to toot my own horn, but I literally coming straight from taking down the baptismal tank, and the water was already in it.
Oh, God.
So
you had to unpump it too?
We had to empty it with the pump. We waited an hour. Now, luckily, Pastor Chris Smith was out of town. Pastor Michael's out of town. But Pastor Chris Weiss showed up, and we got rid of it. But I'm still listen, for anyone who thinks that the blue check mark on Instagram rids you of having to do some of the labor-intensive items, I was literally just emptying the baptismal tank so that a couple third graders can practice a play. Yeah. And then we got to go back tomorrow
and fill it up.
Put it back on the stage. But being a portable church ain't no joke.
It ain't no joke. But that's your heart. And that's what I love the most about you, because you're genuine.
I love the local church. I'll do it for the rest of my life. I thought about it today, and our church meets in the school's cafeteria, and the kids were having lunch in there, and it was so loud and so chaotic. And I was looking at those cafeteria attendants, and I'm like, man, at least I don't have to listen to first graders scream for hours, all day long. I was like, I'll take this baptismal tank down, no problem. If that means I can keep doing what I'm doing,
Yeah. And that's the beautiful thing, because like just getting to know you over the years, and then being invited to your house so many times. I was never invited to my pastor's house. Like, yeah, we get that a lot. We get that a lot too. It's like I recognize these things, and I'm saying like all of this to say like I learned so much by watching you. That's awesome. And by watching the things that you do. Yeah. To where now I'm going to launch a church. I'm just playing.
Yeah, come on. Split it. I dare you. I give it to you. Have it. Whatever you want to call it. OneFaith Church coming up. OneFaith, is that what this podcast is called? OneFaith. Yeah, OneFaith Church launching it's launching in Sanford actually, 2027. OneFaith, onefaith.church.com.net.gov.edu.
Not all of it, right?
Yeah, no, our house is an extension of our church. We have been blessed, and we've said from the beginning, it's like if God gives us something, God gives us more. We always ask the question, what's the more for? And so we have our house opened up, and if nobody is sick, and it's a good time, we'll invite people over.
Yeah, and those things, they just mean so much. Mm-hmm. It meant so much to me coming out of a season of hurt, coming out of a season of just not trusting leaders, and just you guys just doing those things as everyday normal activities. That helped me to break that mold and break out of that shell of I can't trust pastors and leaders no more. Yeah, it's like because of that, I thank you for that, because you helped me to trust leadership more. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that you're perfect. I'm not saying that you.
I'm far from that.
And cross every T.
I'm far from that. I've missed a couple of swings in my day. I've swung and missed several times and not been there when I should have been there, or said something that I shouldn't have said, or got in my flesh. And I mean, I've been in my flesh a couple times. If you're in production, which you've served in production before, people ask, why are you so intense about production and the camera angles and the audio quality? It's like, well, people aren't giving church a second shot, really. And when you have video venues reliant on camera angles, and internet connection is important, you start to, I start to value, and it's not the production as much as it is how important it is for the gospel to be preached across the city.
Yeah.
And so, I do get a little intense on the production side, but you don't do that anymore. Now you're on the prayer team.
You ran me away. I'm just
playing. You don't want to be in production, man. It's the underbelly. It's the ugly underbelly.
That's the true ministry work. Like,
it really is tough.
It really is tough. But I loved it. I loved my time in production. I just felt when I left that the Lord was calling me to more. And just like you said, what's the more for? I just felt God calling me to more and put in a more different space.
I really do believe that our prayer team is such a vital role, and it's not an afterthought for us. You know, the prayer team is utilized every Sunday. Even if we don't do a formal altar call at the end, we have a prayer time most of the time during our worship set. And then just to help pass out the cards when people raise their hands. For
salvation.
You get to see firsthand the harvest of souls that takes place, and it's critical.
Yeah, and we're following up with most of those people too, like the ones that have prayer requests. We're reaching out to them. We're praying with them.
We've got over 50 people signed up to be baptized this weekend, and a lot of that is because of the work of the prayer team that follows up with those who have been saved and who have made that decision to follow Christ. We're baptizing one lady who is just a dear saint, and I thought, this lady is mature in the Lord. She's been baptized before. Yeah. She goes to our West Campus, and I thought, there's no way that she's not baptized. I mean, she literally, I've heard her pray in the Spirit. Yeah. I've heard her. I've seen her pray. I've seen her prophet. I've seen her do all these things, and her name came across the form, and I was like, that must be a mistake. She must have been trying to give online and signed up to be baptized instead.
Wrong site.
Yeah, and no, she said I was sprinkled as a baby, but I've never been immersed. I've never gone through the baptism by immersion, which is what we believe in, and so she's getting baptized on Sunday.
That's good. So I want to kind of segue into something. So we had talked about the production piece and everything like that. I want to talk about something because I feel like this is something that you wrestle with a lot too. Like, we appreciate the production elements, but I know that there's this wrestle between the spirit when the spirit moves and the production element of the whole thing. What is the biggest challenge that you feel that you have with that?
So a couple things about my background to maybe help people understand where I come from. I'm third generation Assemblies of God, which is over 100-year-old Pentecostal denomination, started at Azusa Street and has rich history here in America. I think it's 85 million total adherents globally, and I get to serve on the board as one of the executive presbyters, which is just a fancy name of saying board member.
He's a bishop.
Yeah. And my demographic, my responsibility is any minister under 40, and so the next generation essentially. And then I pastor a local church, so I have Pentecost in my bones. I'm third generation. My grandfather was 50 years on the continent of Africa, planting churches and helping pastors, training pastors is what he did. And then my parents were 30 years in Europe, pastoring an international church, meaning an English-speaking church overseas. Yeah. And so all I've ever known is church, and all I've ever known is Pentecost. I've never deviated from the local church or Pentecost. So I understand the value of the move of the Spirit. What I've really tried to do is marry a spirit of excellence with a spirit of expectation. So there's a spirit of excellence that says we're going to make sure that we're not winging it. But then there's a spirit of expectation that says, God, come and do whatever you please. And my job as the pastor, and my job to train all of our campus pastors and our leaders is to somehow learn to disciple and manage the tension between excellence and expectation. So we want to be excellent. We want the sound quality to be good. We want the camera angles to be right. All of that can happen during the week. But when we get into the presence of God, our expectation meets our excellence, and expectation is always going to determine what happens in the service. Now, I think tradition and traditionalism has boxed us into thinking that the Holy Spirit only moves at certain times. So unless the preaching is an hour long, it wasn't Spirit-filled, Unless they sang Oceans, it wasn't Spirit-filled. That's a white church song for all those listening. Unless I came to the altar and I got pushed over, or unless they had a courtesy cloth over me, it wasn't Holy Spirit. And I want the Lord to move us beyond our expectations and our old previous standards. And so I do manage that tension, and every single week I'm stuck with trying to figure out, okay, when you're multi-site, there's so many more components too. So if you're single site and single service, meaning if you have one service in one building, your freedom is greater. Yeah. But your reach is smaller. Yeah. And so it's really important that I'm always constantly asking the Lord, show me impact. Yeah. Help me measure impact, because I can have all the fun at our East location, the broadcast location, and neglect South or neglect West. And what I've done is I've diminished our impact. So I've impressed people with our flow or our spiritual moments, and those things are important, and we do make space for those, and I'm going to get to where we make space for them. Yeah. But if I don't have excellence, South Campus gets a diminished version. West Campus gets a diminished version. Online gets a diminished version. So what we've done is we've tried our best to create space at every location during the worship time. I've tried my best to always be led by the Spirit in my preaching. But then we've created our First Wednesday culture. Yeah. And First Wednesday, you can feel it. Yeah. First Wednesday is where expectation gets really high and excellence kind of gets put on the back burner. Yeah. There aren't first-time guests at First Wednesday. Right. So we can grip it and rip it. I don't have to explain everything. Yeah. You can flow. There's not another service happening after First Wednesday, so we can take our time. And anyone that comes to church on a Wednesday night tends to be hungrier than people who come to church on Sunday morning. So that's kind of how we've navigated that, is not saying, no, we don't want, tongues. No, we don't want prayer. No, we don't want prophecy. Yeah. But instead we've said we are going to value excellence and expectation, especially on Sunday, to be about the same. And then we're going to let loose on Wednesday nights, First Wednesdays.
And I think that's what makes the church, Focus Church, very special. Like, me and my wife, we talk about this all the time. The one thing that really stands out about us, and I feel like is our identity, is the fact that we do allow space for the Holy Spirit to move. Like, you go to any other church that's similar to ours. Yeah. It's funny because I used to call us Great Value Elevation.
Yeah. It's bag cereal. Right. We're the bag cereal. Right. Yeah.
You go to any other church that's like that, like, they're not speaking in tongues. They're not doing all of those different elements and those different things. It's slowly trying to creep in. A lot of people, I've seen it. Yeah.
But they're still using teleprompters for their host. For the moment. For their prayer moments. Yeah. I've been to some of those, let's call them big boxes, and I've just seen, like, okay, I understand excellence. Like, I think it's important. It's very important. To script every word. Yeah. To script every word really does put a cap on what's possible in the room. If you don't have the ability, great communicators need to have the freedom to read the room and read the moment. Yeah. But if you put a teleprompter, all you're doing is delivering information instead of really having fresh revelation.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have one of the best moments, to my opinion, and I know you get a lot of, you get in trouble for this a lot. It's when you bypass the bumper.
Yeah. When I skip the video.
Right. Yeah. Right. And so we have the bumper, just for people to understand what a bumper is. The bumper is the transition between the worship and the sermon. Yeah. And it's a video that gets all this different.
Basically it's a 30-second video that gets all of the campuses synced up at the same moment. Yeah.
And so it's necessary. It becomes a headache when Pastor Mike is in the spirit and he goes straight into it. But I want to say that moment. Those moments is what, in my opinion, make the church special.
I know. I have a love-hate relationship with that dumb video. And I understand why it's necessary. That's what I was talking about. I have to remember the impact. Like, on the other side of the lens, there are hundreds of people that if I were to say, hey, let's not run the bumper, let me just go up and do my thing. Yeah. If that transition at the other campuses is clunky, it actually might break their atmosphere. Yeah. Even though I think it helps ours. Yeah. And so it takes a ton of discipline, because I have to tell myself, there's people in Garner at the Regal White Oak Movie Theater waiting for a clean cue. Yeah. There's people in Apex waiting for a clean cue. And when I tell myself that, I'm reminded of those people at those other locations. And trust me, it's a constant battle. It's a weekly battle that I say, I just want to get up there.
Right, just go lose.
Yeah. It's very hard.
Yeah. And I think that, but like I said, I think those things make it special because you're not getting that at any other church. Like the altar call during the worship, those moments, like I lead the prayer team, so I don't think people really understand the amount of warfare that we encounter at the altar and things like that. Like those spaces and those moments are critical. And I think that's what make the beauty of Focus Church, because we're unique. Like we always looking, like you were talking about earlier, like I'm always looking for ways to distinguish and to be different, to be set apart. Yeah. I think that's one of the things that distinguishes us. Sets us apart.
We are presence driven. I like saying presence driven, or you could say Pentecostal, but someone might not understand what that means. It just means that instead of being production driven, we're presence driven.
Yeah. The next question is, where do you see, not Focus Church, but the church in whole? What's next for the church?
I think technology has really increased the speed at which people get their information. Mm-hmm. So back in the day, if you go way, way back before the printing press, there was one Bible. Yeah. And you just had to trust that that's what it said. Yeah. Now you have commentary in your pocket. Mm-hmm. So the speed at which people are moving to learn is great. And so the need for pastors to be solely theologians is going away. Mm-hmm. And the need for there to be something that nothing else can replace as the church is huge. Yeah. So for us, it's like you're going to get Bible preaching on YouTube. Right. You're going to find our kind of music on Spotify. Yeah. But you cannot find family like Focus Church family anywhere else. Yeah. So the churches who build families are going to survive. The churches who are just trying to be content farms or production studios, they're not going to last because people can get that anywhere. Yeah. But in the longing of our soul, at the core of who we are 5-10 years from now, loneliness is the greatest epidemic. Mm-hmm. And so the church has to, the churches that are going to survive are going to be the churches that help combat people's loneliness. Yeah. No one's impressed anymore by the big three. Yeah. You know what the big three are? The big screens, skinny jeans, haze machines. Yeah. Nobody's impressed by that anymore. That's not drawing people. I've had pastors call me and they're like, hey man, if I only had an LED wall, we'd grow. And I'm like, no. Yeah. If people feel genuinely cared for and like they've met people who love them and they've made a friend and they've made a family, they're going to stay. Yeah. And so the churches who are going to survive are going to, over the next 10 years, here's what's going to happen in the church. The middle-sized church is going to disappear. Mm. Either churches are going to be smaller or churches are going to be larger. Mm-hmm. The middle-sized church, the 400, 500-member church is going to disappear. Mm. And you're going to find either a 100-member church or a 10,000-member church because the 10,000-member church is going to be easier to attend. Yeah. You're going to be, your kids are going to love it. Yeah. It's going to be high production value. And then the 100-member church is going to feel like family. Yeah. And it's going to feel like a genuine family. Yeah. And a lot of it will be made up of families, right? Cousins, uncles, aunts. And so I think that the day of the middle class, I say middle class church, like the middle-sized church is probably going away. Yeah. You're going to have a small or really, really large.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we are multi-site.
Yes.
You believe strongly in the multi-site and having a multi-site model. Yep. A lot of the greatest tension with multi-site, people want to be at the main campus. Yeah. How do you combat that?
Well, every time so I'll go back up a little bit. I'm not married to video. Mm-hmm. But we're dating, it's like I'm committed to it currently, I'm committed to video venue currently, but I'm not married to it forever. Mm-hmm. There might come a day where the Lord moves our model from franchise. I call it a franchise model meeting. Mm-hmm. The sermon is exactly the same. The kids ministry is exactly the same. We have one budget. We have one bank account. Yeah. All the campuses don't get to manage their own funds. We centralize all of that. So that's our model. I'm not necessarily married to it, but we're dating, and I think, so a couple things happen when people come to video venue church. Yeah. Sometimes there's disappointment. They're like, now what I've discovered is people who are new to church don't know the difference.
Yeah.
So they don't have a frame of reference. I grew up with my pastor in the building.
Yeah.
Well, if you've never been to church, you're like, oh, this must be normal. This must be how they do it. The pastor's on the screen. Now, when people come, there's a couple things that happen. At a video venue, there's a lot more connection and community.
Yeah.
Because it's smaller.
Yeah.
At the main location where I am live, it feels larger because it is, and it has to be more produced because it is being broadcast out. Now, I'll give you my take on why people shouldn't come to our main location, and they should just go to whichever location is closest and whichever one their friends would be more likely to say yes to an invitation to. Every person who's told me I don't like video teaching, when I preach in the main room and I look at them,
they're looking at the screen.
They are looking at a screen.
Yeah.
They don't even look at me when I preach. They look at the side screens. So if you're complaining about not wanting me to be on video, and then when you get to where I am live and you watch me on video, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And so another thing that happens to us, and it's amazing to me, every time we launch a new location, we think we're going to lose people at the main location, and all it does is open up more seats. So we send 300 out, and 300 more come.
Back. Yeah.
Yep. And that campus gets established. And even after that campus is built, even if people who went to help that campus start come back, that campus is growing. Like our South location is stronger than it's ever been.
Yeah.
And there was people who sacrificed a year, 6 months, 18 months to go over there and help it get started, and have since returned to the main location. And I think we'll see that again when we go, north or anywhere else where the Lord might open it up. So the key for us, the biggest tension, is not video teaching. It's ensuring that the quality of the ministry that we provide is the same.
Yeah.
So I don't want people to say, well, the music is better there.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah.
So we send some of our best worship leaders to our video venues. You'll see, Miss Veronica, she'll be at West. Why? Because we want to make sure that every venue that we have gets quality worship leading.
Yeah.
Because they're getting the same sermon.
Yeah.
But the music, and the kids ministry too.
Yeah.
We don't ever want any location for them to feel like it's less or diminished or unsafe.
We enjoy the main location because of the worship and everything, and just feeling like you're there, in it. To a person that's like that, like me, how would you encourage a person to go to a video venue?
Yeah. If the Lord sends you to it, you better be obedient.
Yeah, you're right.
And so there is something in the life of the believer that I believe we'll label it seasonal sacrifice, where there might be a season where God sends you and says, hey, I know you prefer in-person teaching, but in this season, I need you to be the minister instead of receiving the ministry. I'm not saying that's for everybody, and I'm not saying that's forever, but there are seasons of that.
Yeah.
I remember, when we went for the Future campaign, it was like a big sacrifice. We made a big commitment, and it's like this kind of financial sacrifice we made, we couldn't sustain that forever. Like we literally gave more than we could sustainably give long term, but we saw ourselves able to do it for 2 years. And so that's probably, if people are like, I don't know if I want to go to a video venue. Well, try it. Give yourself 6 months.
Yeah.
I attend where my friends go.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I'm going to listen to the sermon. I'm going to engage into the sermon. But the community, the family is really what matters. Like my family, and I say that, my friends go to all the campuses. I'm the pastor of the church, but it's important that you go where your community is.
Yeah, because I know we had a couple people that from the East Campus that now go to South. One guy I'm actually discipling, he goes to the South Campus. And he went because he has more community there. His best friend is there. Yep. His people are there, so he feels more connected.
I mean, let's be honest.
Campus.
Sunday church is really about lunch.
Yeah.
And so who do I want to go to lunch with?
Right.
So like,
who we about to eat at? Right?
If you're at East, we run 3 services. Yeah. It is work.
Yeah, it's work.
It's when you serve at East, it's work.
Yeah.
That's why if you're watching this and you go to South or West, you single service sites, you got it easy. They're at lunch, they're paying their bill at lunch, and we're just starting our 11:30. Yeah. We're just starting. Yeah. We eat dinner after y'all have done eat lunch.
Right. We're done.
Yeah. So I think that's a big thing too, is like, at the end of the day, where are your friends at? Yeah. And where could you be used by God the most?
Yeah.
And the sermon is exactly the same. Yeah. And again, there's preference. And I think where our children are best ministered to comes into play. Like, I've had a lot of people say our kids just love it at this location.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Your kids matter. Raising your kids right matters. They're only going to be that age for so long. You only have so much time to develop them and to disciple them. Yeah. And if they don't want to go to church somewhere, you better find somewhere for them to go to church.
Yeah.
Because if your kids leave church, they'll end up leaving the faith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
do think you could be a Christian without having to go to our church, but we are making it as easy as possible for people with children to disciple and raise their kids in the right way.
Yeah. Now, I could say this. I have 4 kids. That'll be
you got too many kids. Do you know what causes that? Hope you do.
I need you to help me. But my kids, they love Focus Kids. Even on Sunday morning, we were going to the Mamandi this past Sunday. Yeah. It's a funny story. We were going to the Mamandi, and so we get in the car. Marley, my 3-year-old son, he's fussing us out. It's like, where are we going? It's like, I want to go to church.
Yeah, he knows you're taking the wrong turn.
Right.
Yeah.
Going the wrong way. It's like, we're going to church. It's just in a different building. But, that just shows just how much my kids love being at Focus and being a part of it.
It's a huge value of ours. We spend a lot of time crafting the experience for the kids.
Yeah.
Number 1, because we want to make sure that we're raising disciples.
Yeah.
And number 2, because we know how important they are to families. Like, I mean, when we were growing up, I don't think it was that big of a deal. Mm-mm. I think they just put us in the basement. Like, there was someone to teach Sunday school, but we didn't know.
We didn't learn like that.
They might not have had a background check. We have no idea. I mean, it was barbed wire and broken glass. It was like,
it was very sketchy.
It was a flannel graph. It was just a little coloring page. And now it's like, kids are making decisions on behalf of the family, and if the kid don't like it, they're probably not coming back. So one of our biggest values is, the next generation. We say it every Sunday from the microphone. We try to accommodate as many young people as possible in our student ministry. We spend more money in youth and kids than most churches do, but the results, speak for themselves.
They do. I mean, and honestly, it's because of the investment that you make into the next generation is why more people like me that have families that have kids want to give back or want to be a part of ministries like that, because my son, my 11-year-old, he loves Focus Youth. Yeah. Like, he walks around with his Bible all the time. So when he goes to the bus stop, he has his Bible in his hand. When I pick him up from the bus stop, if it's raining, he has his Bible in his hand. He's walking home from the bus stop, he has his Bible in it. And he's at school, he has his Bible in his hand. We got a note from his teacher, said that it's so amazing to see him with his Bible open and he's reading it, during different breaks in school and whatnot. And I'm like, man, that's a huge impact. When I was his age at 11, I was not carrying my Bible around with me at school. Just to see that on display, it's like, man, you want to invest more into your youth ministry than anything.
Yes.
Because that's where you're going to see how you're going to raise up your disciples, how you're going to raise up the next generation, how you're going to raise up your future pastors, your future leaders, and those from within the church.
We always say, they are the church of today and the church leaders of tomorrow. Yeah. So we have to raise them up. Yeah. And I'm working on a personal project of mine. I purchased a spiral-bound Bible, New Testament, and spiral-bound. So it's like, it's not like your regular book. It flips all the way around and it has journals on the margins, the whole New Testament. And I've committed to, for the next 3 years, to do one New Testament commentary or devotional to each of my kids.
Wow.
And so Ariana will graduate next year. And my prayer is by the time she graduates, I would have processed the whole New Testament and added my commentary directly for her. So this won't be like a public devotional or a blog post. It's like I'm thinking through Ariana's life, her gifting, her calling, and when I read through whatever passage sticks out to me that day, I'm going to take, and so for the next 3 years, I've committed to doing one per kid so that on their graduation, I'm handing them a New Testament, and it has devotional thoughts and prophetic words from their father.
That's so
and
good.
so I think that's one of the reasons our church values the next generation so much is because the pastor is going through it. Like I have 3 teenagers and I want them to love God for the rest of their life. And so whatever the cost is to get them involved and engaged, I want to see your 4 kids and my 3 kids and his kids and everyone's kids. I want to see them love God for the rest of their life.
Yeah. I love that. All right. So we're going to go a little bit deeper.
Okay.
So, there's a lot of, I would say, growth that is happening. And a lot of people are desiring more. I know you mentioned First Wednesdays as that space for that. But to that person, to that believer, to that person that is just desiring more, what can you say to them? How can they experience more or get more from God in our church?
Yeah, I think the older I get, the more I value consistency over intensity.
Yeah.
So when we were teenagers, you go to youth camp, that's intensity, right?
Yeah.
Break every CD, you come home and you commit, you break up with your girlfriend, you go all in, you become a monk, you're like, you're reading King James.
All the rap CDs.
Yes, everything. And that's good.
Yeah.
I think there are moments of intensity in the life of a believer where they experience more and they experience the fire of God and there are Acts chapter 2 moments where the power of God falls.
Yeah.
But then in verse 42, it says they devoted themselves.
Yeah.
That's consistency.
Yeah.
So the power of God falls in Acts 2 in the beginning, in a moment, that's intensity. And then it says they devoted themselves to the teaching, to the breaking of bread, and to prayer. And then in Acts chapter 3, you find Peter and John going to the temple to pray at the regular time of prayer. So what is that? Intensity at the beginning of Acts chapter 2, consistency in Acts chapter 3.
Yeah.
So if you're a believer and you're like, I want to go deeper, I want to go more, then just don't skip leg day. Like just don't skip. Pray every single day. Yeah. Read your word every single day. I have found the wisest people I know, the people who are deepest or who have the most of God, isn't because they go from revival to revival. It's because they have the same rocking chair, they have the same cup of coffee, they have the same prayer journal, they have the same Bible, and they've done it for 50 years. And so if you desire more, desire wisdom and consistency over intensity. My grandfather, he's 87 years old, 88 probably now, and he's loved God for a long time. Yeah, was pursuing a law degree when God called him into missions. So he left law school immediately and went to reach the people of Ecuador. And that man has pursued consistent relationship with the Holy Spirit.
Wow.
For, over half a century. He's been ordained with our denomination for over half a century. So he's been probably a believer for, 60 years, 65 plus years. And you just get depth when you see, there's a book called The God of the Long View. And it's so good because it talks about just understanding the length of your life.
Yeah.
And, I get into this mode at the beginning of the year. I get intense. I'm like, okay, no more sugar.
Yeah.
I'm going to bench press 400. That's what happens, right?
Yeah.
That's intensity.
Yeah.
But if you look back on this year, and if you just would have been consistent, you wouldn't have to get intense because you've been consistent. The same is true for the presence of God. Every day, I take my son to school, and I pray almost the same prayer, and I pray almost for the same length. And I think that contributes to the presence and wisdom and power of God in my life more than some sort of fresh revelation or intense time with the Lord. And I do agree with those things. Like I'm fine with revival. I like First Wednesday.
Yeah.
But man, if you think about anyone who's made a spiritual impact, any author, any commentator, any preacher, it's like you look at, any of these preachers. I don't want to name anyone in case they have scandal, and then I'm stuck affirming or having endorsed someone with a scandal.
Right.
But if you look at anyone who's done this they've just done it for a long time.
Yeah.
And so people ask, how did the church grow? How did Focus Church grow? It's like, we just do it the same thing every week. Good music, good preaching, good kids ministry. And then how do I grow as a believer? I just do the same thing every week.
Yeah.
It's not seeking adventure that gets you maturity.
Yeah.
It's really like, I think about some people on our staff, like Pastor Chris Weiss. He's the strongest person I know, physically strong. Like he doesn't look it, but he's built like a brick.
Yeah. Yeah. No, he is.
And I say, how'd you get that way? He goes, I just never skip. He's at Planet Fitness every single day. So just with him this morning, and we're leaving the church. He goes, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm going to TJ's house to shoot a podcast. I said, what are you doing? He goes, I'm going to the gym. And it's every single day. He's got his book, he's got his bag, he's got his water, he's got his change of clothes, and it's consistency over intensity.
Yeah.
He's been going to the gym for 20 years.
Wow.
And now he can pull up
anyone. Yeah.
And he doesn't even look it because it's not in the bodybuilding world. This is a great analogy because it's people, they have like cycles, they're on a HGH, human growth hormone. They call it a cycle, right? I'm on a bulking cycle or I'm on a cutting cycle. Pastor Chris, no cycles. There is no cycle.
Yeah.
His lifestyle has become the cycle. And so it's every day. It's not intense. Like when you go to work out with him, you're like, this isn't.
I want doing much. Like,
I was like, I want to sweat.
Yeah.
There's no need to. When you do it every day and you add, 2.5 pounds on the end of the bar once a month, over time, it's consistency over time.
Yeah.
And I think spiritual depth is the same way.
Yeah.
It's not like, God, reveal to me wisdom today.
Yeah.
It's no, God, just like yesterday, make me an instrument of your presence.
Yeah.
Make me an instrument of your grace.
Yeah.
Reveal to me something in the scriptures, and I'll be back tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I'll be back tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I'll be back tomorrow.
Yeah.
And Eugene Peterson, who is a theologian who can't have scandal because he's already passed. So I can't endorse someone who's passed.
They said the same about Ravi.
All right, I'm not going there. I am not going there.
I'm messing with you.
He says,
just turned red.
I know. I turned red because you got the Bahamian heat on in this podcast studio. He says you have to live a life along obedience in the same direction. Yeah. And so when someone asks me, how do I get more of God? It's change out the things that you do consistently that don't bring God into the picture and replace it. I'm going on a digital detox starting on Sunday. Digital detox is like a pause from any scrolling, or I call it doom scrolling. I don't know if you've seen it. Just you look up and you're like, I'm now 80 years old. I just scrolled for years, And so I'm doing a digital detox, and I have to be super intentional because my life is a lot of my life is full of content. Sermon writing is content. My coaching business is content. My personality is very driven towards content. Like I like making content. I enjoy it, And so I've prepared myself. Like this whole week I'm not nervous, but I've had to prepare myself. I say, what am I going to do when I want to reach for my phone? So I bought 4 books. I bought that Spiral Bible, and I have I've gonna dummy my phone down to emergencies only and to contact with my family and to some music. I have to have some sort of instrumental music and things like that. And I've had to prepare myself for that because I want to go deeper. I want depth. I want the Lord to, I think, the longer I follow God, the revelation of sonship becomes more real. Yeah. And when I was a kid, and you knew this, you grew up, you want to speak in tongues so bad, you want to force it, and you're like, and then the more mature I've become, and I have so far to go, I have a long ways to go, But the more mature I become, the revelation of sonship has become such a reality to me. My son does not have to try to force a relationship with me ever.
Right.
He's never like, Dad. Are you my dad today?
Yeah.
What do I need to do to make you my dad today?
Yeah.
I'm his father.
Yeah.
And he's my son. And the same is true between me and God. Like, I wake up now with a fresher revelation of sonship.
How do you combat loneliness in ministry? How do you combat all of these different things that happens when you don't feel like you're good enough, or you don't feel like, those things?
As your impact gets larger, your circle has to get smaller. Mm-hmm. The amount of people that can handle me behind the scenes is very small. That's true. But you have to be real. Like, mm-hmm. I have two friends, Nate Clark, Travis Jones. You've met them before. Mm-hmm. They've both preached for me. It's the real deal around there. Yeah. We make the drive. They live in Richmond. I live in Raleigh. It's 2 hours. We meet halfway. I'll go up there. They'll come down here. Real friendships is the only way. And I'm not talking about online friendships. I'm talking about meals together. I'm talking about vacation time. We went to Busch Gardens, the Christmas time at Busch Gardens with the Travis Jones. Travis Jones and I shared a bed for 16 days in India. It's like,
that's real good. You're
going to be friends. You're going to be friends or enemies, one or the other. You know so we survived that, and if you survive that, you could survive anything. And it can't just be a close circle. It has to be a real circle. Yeah. You have to tell them, I looked twice at the gym today at someone that was not my spouse.
Right.
And you have to be okay with letting that land on their heart and them knowing that. I call them driveway friends. I don't know, like at the end of a stressful day, I put my truck in park in my driveway, and before taking out my frustrations of the ministry on my family, I just call Travis. Yeah, call Nate, and we have very close relationship. Yeah. And they've seen me at times. I think our elders serve as that too. I wouldn't say that I'm friends with our elders, but our elders do have access to my heart. Yeah. And that's important too. So my two friends are outside the church, and then I have people with access to my heart within the church. Yeah. Our staff too, we have a really good staff culture. And so if you're feeling lonely, you got to find one or two people. And then I also think there should be a steady rotation of hobbies. Yeah. If you're a pastor and all you do is work, I heard it said that if you work with your hands, Sabbath with your mind, and if you work with your mind, Sabbath with your hands. Our work is theological. Yeah. Our work is thinking, problem solving, conflict resolution. So you better have a golf club in your hand. For me, it's like three things: working out, golfing, and deer hunting. And all three of those things involve manual labor. Yeah, hands. So that's my advice to people who might feel lonely.